Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming along. And just while people are coming on, hi, Rosie. How are you? Just give people a couple of minutes to kind of get sorted. Rosie says she's great, so that's awesome. Yay. Fantastic. So thank you for coming along. I have been running these masterclasses one a month or year, and I'm really loving it. I'm really loving kind of getting in and digging into sales and selling, and I've been getting some great feedback, so I know you're in for a ride. So I've just been doing my group coaching. So I've done a Facebook Live, I've done 2 hours of group coaching, and now I'm going to spend 45 minutes to an hour with you guys on this. So I'm so excited to share this information with you. So what we might do is get started. So today and this month, I've been really focusing on helping people buy from you. And the reason that is so dear to my heart and so important for you is because often when people think about sales and selling, they get it all wrong. They think it's about telling, they think it's about them. And actually that simple shift to make it about helping people buy from you is just so important. So let's kick off. So thank you for coming along today. We've got a presentation. I love questions. Hi, Loretta. Thanks for coming along. I love questions. So as we're going through, please feel free to pop some questions into the chat box. That's the best way to do it. Just do them as they occur to you. But there will be times when I'll be asking about questions as well. So if you do it when it occurs to you, then you'll remember, and then I can go back through the questions when we get to a point where that's the right thing to do. And I will be emailing you a copy of the recording and a workbook that goes with this for today, because to me, everything, it's awesome that you're here to listen to me, but what I really want you to do is to go out and apply some of this stuff in your business, and that's where the value and the gold is. So for those of you who haven't met me, I'm a sales nut. I love sales. I love cold calling. I love everything about sales and selling. I love just that thing where you influence someone to make a decision for them to buy from you. So yay, it's my favorite thing. And I've been doing it, sounds like forever. It feels like forever. And in the last 7 years, I've been consulting and coaching and doing all of those sort of things. And so for me, the joy comes from teaching other people who aren't in love with sales like I am, teaching them the hidden rules and skills and tips that actually help them become better at selling and unlock the sales code. So very happy to share that with you today. So today we're going to talk about what is great selling, and once we get our mind in the right place, then what we can do is if we can see that shows a different way of acting, a different activity, and then you will get different results from doing it that way. As with everything that I do, there are absolutely action steps that I want you to take, some homework for you, because the value of today is, listening to me is fantastic, and I'm a great presenter, but the real value is in you actually putting some of these things into your business and actually taking action in your business. And always open to questions. There isn't a sales question or a question about sales and selling that I have met that I don't like. So however silly, weird, sounds like common sense, Doesn't make sense to you, whatever, please ask. Okay, so let's start by thinking about what great selling is or really isn't. So great selling is not about being pushy or icky. It's not about talking about yourself. It's not about pushing you onto other people and forcing them to do or manipulating them to do something that they don't want to do. That's not what great selling is. And when I talk about that, often people will say to me, but Fran, I've experienced those things before. And yes, we've all experienced those things. And so for those of you who've heard me speak before, you might have heard me say something like, it's about, crocodiles and dinosaurs. Just because there's crocodiles still in existence doesn't mean we're in the age of the dinosaurs. So yes, there's still people who sell that way, but that is not great selling. Great selling is helping people buy from you. It's focusing on them. It's thinking about and helping them uncover and discover what their problem is, the problem that they want to solve or something that they want to achieve, and helping them work out how you can help them do that, if indeed you can. Because sometimes we see people with a problem and you know what? That's not the best problem for us. That's not the right client for us, and that's okay. So a good sales process and a good client roadmap helps the client make a great buying decision for them, whether that's yes or no. So it's divorced from the outcome. So why does this work? Why do I deeply know that this works, and why do I bang on about this all the time? Well, let me tell you. The person that you're talking to, the person with the problem, they've woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning, something's keeping them awake, something's bugging them, so something they want to achieve. What they're looking for is a solution. What they're looking for is a way to solve that problem or achieve that goal. And they want to know how. How are they going to do it? What are the steps that they need to take? What do they need to invest? What are all the questions that they might have around that? So that's what they want. And that's why this works for them, because it steps that out for them. For you, why a client roadmap really, really works is because it just makes it easier. What I know from doing this with my coaching clients and lots of different people is that it makes you stop and think about the steps that you do take with a client. Often we've been in business for a little while, or even if we've only been in business a few minutes, it makes you stop and think about, well, what are the steps that I need a client to take in order to get them to buy from me, and in order for me to understand that that's actually the best thing for them to do. So it's easier for us because it makes us stop and think about it. It's easier for us because it's a connection with the client. It's easier for us because suddenly we're not saying to this person, buy from me. We're saying to this person, let me show you what I do to help you work through the problem that you have and uncover and discover the solution and see whether that's the right fit for you. That's what a client roadmap does. That's what focusing on the client and helping them buy looks like. And it's connected absolutely with the client, but it's also connected with you. I love Simon Sinek and the why of business. And so we often just talk about in networking things, what do we do? I'm an accountant, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a VA. But it's how you do what you do and why you do what you do that flavors and makes you different to all the other accountants, all the other virtual assistants, all the other sales trainers that are out there. So my flavor is different because of who I am. So how do we help others buy from us? So one of the things we often do when we busy working inside our business, we forget all of the things that we know. We know so much and so much detail about the landscape that's in front of us that we forget to put those markers out for other people, because we assume wrongly that they are just as aware of the movements in the landscape, that the tree is there and they have to move around it. Well, the truth is that you see things on your area of the landscape, that your area of where you live, much more clearly than other people do. So having a clear guideline that says, move to the left of that tree, head down towards the river, whatever it happens to be, those steps, those things, those insights have great, great value. And once you've shown them the landscape, you can say, this is where you are, because not all of our clients start at point A and go to point B. Some of them have experience with what you do. Some of them have no experience with what you do. So we can't start the client journey always at the same point. Sometimes we've got to start that at a different point because of the client that we're dealing with. And see how I'm making it about them, not about us. So once you know the landscape and you've helped them discover what that landscape looks like, once you've helped them discover where they're at on that landscape, then you can look at what the next steps are. And often when we're pressured, or we feel the pressure of asking people to buy from us, either because we need another client or, we think that that's what selling is about, we forget to position in the landscape, and we also forget to ask for the next step and to guide them with love and grace through that journey. So what I want you to do is I want you to stop. I want you to pause, and this is going to be in your workbook. And I want you to stop and think about what it is that you know and how you know that. Is that from experience? Is it from a degree? Is it from working with 100 different clients on exactly the same thing? What is it that you bring to the landscape that helps you help other people navigate that? And then what I want you to do is actually stop and think about how you can use all of those things that you've learned, the things that you take for granted about the things that you do every single day, and how you can use that to educate other people, to help them discover whether you're the right person to help them with the problem or solution that they have. Once you've worked out how to speak, once you've worked out what those steps are and how you can educate people, then I want you to get out and share. Share what that is. Share your insights. Often when we are inside our business, you might be doing, let's say you're a bookkeeper, for example. You do the books for 20 different businesses. Well, you know 20 different insights into how to treat a particular problem or how to address, and say those 20 businesses are all in retail or all tradies or whatever. That depth of knowledge is something that an individual business owner could never, ever, ever get to. And yet we forget to tell people about that. We forget to share the insights that we have learned from that diversity and from that level and depth of knowledge that we have. And as always, and you'll hear this a lot today because I'm working on helping people buy from you, show them the next step. One of the great analogies that I often talk about is dancing, that selling is dancing. So when you stand up and ask someone to dance, you nominate, you say, would you like to tango? And they can say, yep, I'd love to tango. That sounds fantastic. Or they might go, oh, I prefer a waltz. And then you get to choose. You can say, no, I'm not interested in waltzing, or yes, that's fine. But you've asked them to dance, and it's your job to lead that dance. So the client roadmap absolutely is like, those people learning to dance. You see them in the movies with the feet, the different coloured feet on the ground. It's like that. It shows them the steps. It shows them what they can do to work out whether they want to buy from you and work with you. Okay, so we've got our mindset right. We're thinking about our landscape. Now, we talked about dinosaurs and crocodiles. this is how crocodiles sell. So I just want to go into this for a second, because if you see yourself being a crocodile, I want you to stop and pull yourself into the modern age, and I'll show you what the modern age looks like in a minute. So how many people have been guilty of this? So instead of, we meet someone who we think could be a potential client, we start telling them, I could help you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And they say, oh, I'm not sure that I'm interested. Well, tell me, well, why not? I did a Facebook Live today on handling objections. In the crocodile world of selling, objections are something that you snap off and get rid of as quickly as possible, because they're in your way. They're a barrier for you. And when you're a crocodile, you negotiate at the end of the sale. And what happens when you leave negotiations and when you leave those sort of things to the end of the sale, the only thing that you're left with is price. And there's an old adage in crocodile selling called ABC, the ABC of selling, which is always be closing. So always look to close the sale. Are you going to buy yet? Are you going to buy yet? Are you going to buy yet? It's all about you and what you want, and not about the client. So let's look at the reverse. Let's get rid of the crocodiles. Go away. Okay, so sales champions and real selling, great selling, actually starts with listening. So it's actually not about you. It's about asking the right question. It's about proposing. It's about finding where that person is on your landscape. And that's all about listening. It's about asking great questions. When someone says something, it's going, oh, that's interesting. Tell me a little bit more about that. Can you tell me about blah? Here's the problem that I see. Do you have that problem? So it's absolutely about digging into, where is this person on your landscape? Where is this person in your roadmap? And how might you be able to help them? Once you've listened and asked them loads and loads of questions, and you really think you've got a handle on the problem or what they're trying to achieve, then we move into the next step, which is finding fit. So do you actually fit this client? Or are they just not your client? Do you need to pass them on to someone else? I actually can't help you with that. Is absolutely okay. So finding fit isn't about going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, here's all the things I do. It's about applying what you do to that person. So here, when we're building a client roadmap, I want you to be explicit about that you're going to ask people lots of questions. The first thing I do is get to understand you, get to understand your business, whatever it is about. So you want to show that in your client roadmap. The next thing I'm going to do is work out if there's things that I can help you with, and I'll discuss that with you here, step 2. Once we've worked out potentially how we can help them, instead of handling objections or running the other way when they come up, the next thing that we're going to do is actually actively look for objections. The reason that's really important is because objections aren't a barrier to you. Objections are actually something that means that your client is thinking about buying from you. So that's such an important distinction, isn't it? Because if someone's thinking about buying from you, why would we handle them like they're a snake? Why would we want to bash them out of the way? No. When someone objects to me and says, oh, I'm not sure. I had a situation actually the other day where a client said to me, oh, we've already been using a sales, someone to help us with our sales strategy and sales training. I said, that's great. Tell me about her. He said it was a her. So tell me about her. So what's her name, blah, blah, blah. And so after the call, I was able to go and have a look at her website and have a look at what she does and look at where the similarities, but more importantly, the differences are. And then I was able to talk to my client about that, or potential client. They're not a client yet, but I do have a next step with them. So that's an example of some people might say, oh, I already deal with blah, blah, blah about that. And some other people might give up and go, oh, okay, well, if you've got that covered, I'll leave you alone. But what I was actually able to find is a point where I was different that had value to the client because I'd been listening and finding where I could fit in to what they wanted to achieve. So objections should be something that you love. Oh, and I've got a comment here from the beautiful Rosie. Hi, Rosie. Rosie says she likes using a whiteboard while she's listening and thinking about the steps for her clients. That's really great. So if you're sitting in front of someone and either noting them down or using a whiteboard, you know what that shows them? It shows them that you're listening. And that gives me a great point. Which I'll cover in a second as we go into a little bit more in depth into each of these steps. The last step is always look to be creating value. So that's my new ABC of selling in the new world of selling. Always be creating, and then I've added a V, value. So let's dig into these a little bit more. Okay, so when we're listening, yes, there's words and logic that we're listening for, but also there's emotions. What are they scared of? What are they fearful of? What are they excited about? Because the reason that's so important is people buy emotionally first and then wrap it in logic. So if you are not capturing what either scares the pants off them or that they're really excited about or in everything in between, you are losing your ability to influence them. If you can tap into the emotional benefit that they will get from working with you, then you help them wrap the words and logic around that, you will absolutely win. And when we're listening involves all of your mind and body. So let me be really, really super clear about this. It involves your body because I want you to be, if you're physically with them, face onto them. Even if you're not, I want you to be thinking about how you can sit up straight or stand up straight. I know some great salespeople who always stand up when they use the phone to call prospects, because when you sit up straight, it changes the timbre in your voice. Can you see that? So if I'm like this, it sounds like this. If I'm like this, it changes the tone of my voice. So when we communicate, 7% is words. Seven, nothing. 55% is body language and the rest is tone and intonation. So even if you're on the phone, sitting up straight, having a smile on your face, that's why it matters. Equally, when we're listening, we need to be listening for those things. Does this person sound bored, interested? What's their tone? Is there a question at the end? Are they engaging, disengaging? What's exactly happening? We use our eyes, obviously, for body language and to pick up on those nonverbal cues. We use our ears, obviously, to listen to the words. We use our brains, but first of all, if we're going to use our brains, we've got to switch them off from what we're cooking for dinner or what happened yesterday or what's going to happen next. We've got to be actually concentrating and focusing on the person that we're talking to. And what I want you to think about is, how can you represent this in a beautiful way in your client roadmap so that you show that you're a listener, that you show that you're going to be open to what they're asking and the types of things that they're looking for. So the second element is finding fit. Now, the last stage of listening actually uses your mouth. The reason your mouth is important is because we've listened and we've heard and we think that we've understood, but we need to use our mouth to confirm that back to the client so that you get it right. So that's the first stage in finding fit. How do you show them that you have understood what they want and need. And then, and only then, once you've done that and got that right, can you work on, together with them, what you might offer them as a solution. And it's a conversation. It's backwards and forwards. It's not a monologue from you. So I want you again to represent that in your client roadmap. So how do you show that you are going to consult with them to involve them in the creation of that solution? Love, love, love objections. As I said before, objections say, I'm thinking about buying from you. If you, I know I've got some people who wear dresses on the call and some people who don't, but just bear with me with this analogy. If you walk in to a dress shop and you say to someone, you know, do you have this dress in another color? It doesn't mean you're not interested in buying. It means, look, I kind of like that, but I'd perhaps prefer it in a green. So questions, and when we come up with objections, it actually means we're considering buying. We're thinking about the product, we're thinking about the service and what that means for us, what that couch looks like in our lounge room, etc., etc., etc. So I want you in your roadmap to really think about what are the common objections that you come up against and how can you open those up and preempt that with the client, and also how do you answer those effectively. So one of the other props that you might have alongside your client roadmap is your common objections and how you work with people that's perhaps a little bit different to other people in your industry. Always be creating value. Value, 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 value. And in great selling, when you've been bitten by a crocodile, you know it, but in great selling, everybody wins. So first and foremost, you win. This is a client that you want to work with. They're going to make you feel awesome. They're not someone who takes advantage of you, and they're not someone who you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should be charging them more, whatever, whatever. First and foremost, you have to win. You have to get value out of this relationship. Then your team. If you've got a team around you, there's no point getting a client that you want to work with who's rude or you know, annoys everybody else or just doesn't fit with your team. So the team also needs to get value. The client obviously needs to get value. And when we do all of those things, then the community gets value because everybody's happy, everybody's doing what they do. You've unlocked a part of this person's business that's going to help them be better at what they do. So the first thing you've got to do is know what that value is and then track it and make sure that you're measuring that and have a way of representing that to our client in our client roadmap. So that might look like a review session. So to me, a client roadmap doesn't stop when they've said yes. So if you think about the steps a client takes, they become aware of you, they want to know more. You might do a discovery session with them, you might give them a report, you might then start working on a particular thing with them, and then you have regular reviews. Either way, at each of those steps, there's a point of value. And when you're clear about what that value is, then you are much more likely to be able to persuade your client to take that next step and discover that value and take the next step and discover the value. So as you can see, it's a continuous progress and process. It's simple. When I put together and help clients put together a client roadmap, 1 page, 2 pages, max. It doesn't have to be a laundry list of all the things that you've got to do. Remember, it's the client's view, not yours. It's the client's roadmap, not yours. It's not every single vein in your body and all of the things that go on to make you be able to get out of bed in the morning. It's just getting out of bed in the morning. So if we wrote a list of all the things that you have to do every single day to get through the day, my God, that would be, an encyclopedia. But think about, what are those steps? You have to get out of bed, you have to have a shower, you have to have some breakfast, you have to eat, you have to do this, you have to do that. It can just be simple, simple, simple. What are the key steps that you take, that you help your client take? And I want you to know what that is. And some of the feedback that I've had from working with clients on this exact thing is it actually makes them stop and think. It actually reminds them, because we do it every day. Sometimes we forget. We forget the value. We forget the impact. We actually forget the step. It's a bit like, I don't know if any of you have ever tried to teach someone how to drive a car. I have, a number of times. And you have to remember, what do I do with the clutch again? How does that relate to what I do with the accelerator? And I know most people these days have automatic cars, but I remember learning in a manual car and teaching people in a manual car. You actually forget. You forget all of the things and all the nuances, and even just, okay, for those of you who've done it in an automatic, what do I do with my head? I know that I look, and blah, 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 to see that there's no oncoming traffic, but you forget the granular steps that you take. And when you're teaching someone, you've got to tell them. You don't just say, look, because they'll just go like that. You've got to say, look in your rear vision mirror, and then put your indicator on, then look in your rear vision mirror again, and then physically turn your body and look before you move out. So that's much more detailed than just saying, look, to see if you're going to hit another car or a bike. So you've got to know that process. You've got to have stopped and thought about it. You've got to have put that down into some sort of document. And then it is absolutely your job to lead the dance. One of the small changes that I help people make that has a dramatic impact is that asking. So we are the expert. We have the knowledge. We've put together the roadmap, and we need to ask people to take the next step with us, and the next step with us, and the next step with us. And that doesn't have to be complicated. It can still be simple. So that might say, wow, it sounds like, thank you so much for telling me about your business. It sounds like that's absolutely something I can help you with. Normally, the next step would be for me to come and have a meeting with you. How does that sound? It's just asking, how does that sound? And you know what? Most of the time, when you put it like that, people will say yes. If you've listened, if you've been clear about how you think you might be able to help, then people want to take the next step. You're not forcing them. You don't have a gun to their head. You're just asking. And for you, I want you to know that the purpose of having this process clear and outlined is so that people can make a decision about whether they want to take that next step or not. And whether they say yes or they say no is a good thing. The thing is that we've got a clear process, and people move through that process well and efficiently, whether it's yes or no. So divorce yourself from the outcome. Okay. So beautiful, people. I want to give you some homework, but before I do that, I know I've just put it up. I want to ask, and I thought I had it. I think I must have put the question one after this. Let's see, PowerPoint 101 fail. But I want to know, tell me, what questions do you have about helping people buy from you? And what questions do you have about building your client roadmap? Because what I hope you've got out of today is some clear things to think about, and in the workbook there'll be some steps for you to take to help you really nut out what that client roadmap looks like for you and your business. And once you've done it, what I want you to do is I want you to go out and show it to a client that you've already worked with or a new potential client and get their feedback. Because again, even though we know our business so intimately, often we forget a step, or we overlook or think that a particular step isn't important. So someone, oh, my mouse thing isn't working. Here we go. So Rosie says that she can see a roadmap in her mind, but she doesn't know how to save it so it's tangible. That's a really great question, Rosie. So what I do, Rosie, is put it together in a flow chart. What I should have had is an example. In your workbook that I'm sending through, there will be an example. But what I want you to do is put your client hat on and take a client walk through so that you've got your roadmap. That's fantastic. And then I just want you to put the headlines. So what's the problem? What's the next thing that you do? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? In my business, how I've written that is just to use the, is it called, it's not called word art. What are the charts in, that you get in Word or PowerPoint to build that out into a process. So you might have a look at that, those ones that come in the Microsoft products and see a process diagram and think, oh, I like that one. I like the circles, or I like the squares, or I like whatever's going to work for you. Oh, actually, I have one right here. So I don't know whether, oops, whether you can see that. So that's an example of a client roadmap. So it's got a picture to tell them what I'm doing, and then some detail about what that means for them. So WIIFM, what's in that for me? So if you can fit it on one page, that's fantastic, because if you think about it as a sales prop that you're going to use, the purpose is, and exactly what I do with this one is I take that along to a meeting and I step people through this process. And so they get to ask me questions about each of those steps, and I can go into some detail with them. And then when I go and build out a proposal, it actually also follows those steps. And so a proposal is obviously a longer version of that. So if you think about the headlines that you put in a proposal, that might be a good place to start, because your proposal should map back to your client journey, if that makes sense, and your roadmap. So if we think about the sales stages that I went through before, the listening component, what do I know about you? What have I discovered? What's your problem? That's the first part of your proposal. Then the finding fit. Here's the problem I can help you with. This is what I'm going to do about it. And obviously the proposal has more detail because you've already done those first step, which is the client discovery and thinking about what happens with that. Any more questions, beautiful people out there? So for those of you who, sorry, Natalie's just come up with a question. It says 99% of my inquiries come through email, but when I ask questions, most don't reply. What do I do? Natalie, can you just tell me what your business is, darling, so that I can answer that? Oh, wedding planning. Okay. So, so obviously you can't help them until you ask some questions. I absolutely understand that. So to me, if you are asking those questions via email, that's a guess. Can you let me know whether that's right? Yes. Okay. So don't do that. So Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So what I would do, if I get an email from someone, I'm a salesperson. So to me, selling is all about people. The first thing I'll do is I'll call them. On most people's email, it will have a phone number. So pick up the phone. So if I was organizing I'm not planning another wedding. I've done one. I think that's enough. But if I was, and I sent you, first of all, I would call. But anyway, if I did send you an email, then you'd say, you could call me. Hi, Fran. Thank you so much for your email. I just have a few questions to go through with you. Is now a good time? And wait and see. And if now's not a good time, then set up a time that is. If they don't have a phone number on there, then you need to set up a time. So I would send an email saying, thank you so much for your email. I'm absolutely happy to help you plan your wedding. In order for me to understand more about you, I've just got a few questions. Here's a link where you can set up a time with me. This call, and see, we're going through that client roadmap. This call, and what you're doing is giving them information. This call is about 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it happens to be. And I typically just, what I'm looking to understand is exactly what you're looking for, what you like, what you don't like, so that I can help you take the next step in your wedding. Does that help you, Natalie? No response. See, no response. Doesn't matter. I know it's been helpful. Great feedback, Fran. Thanks. Phone calls are so scary, but big girl pants on. Natalie, they're not scary. You know what? The phone calls are actually just like the boogeyman. Once you turn the light on and look under the bed, there's no boogeyman actually even there. A phone call isn't as scary as you think it is. And you know what? When you've made the initiative, the people who want to buy from you, the people who are going to be your clients, will actually appreciate it. Because it shows that you care, it shows that you're responsive. And if I was ever to plan another wedding, that is what I want. Like, I plan my wedding myself, but if I was employing a wedding planner, I would want someone who had the guts to pick up the phone, was responsive to my needs, asked whether it was okay to do it now, set out the agenda for me, blah, 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 blah. That's what I want. I want someone who's willing to take those steps. So you need to show that in your pre-purchase behavior. So if you think about how you work with your clients after they've said yes, or what I want you to do, Natalie, is get your big girl's pants on, absolutely, but bring that into your pre-sales. So if you spend lots of time on the phone with your clients, then bring that into your pre-sales, because they're your clients. And the people who don't answer the phone are not your clients. Yes, it shows that you care. Absolutely. And I want someone who is willing to pick up the phone and try and call me rather than send me an email. So just try that, and I'd love to know how you go, Natalie, because I think that'll make a massive difference for you. And yeah, so I want you to focus on them and the problem that you solve and thinking about what they want. And I'm not saying that picking up the phone isn't scary. Well, it's not for me. Well, no, that's not even true. Sometimes I have intrepidation about picking up the phone, but I still do it. And I'm nearly always pleasantly surprised, not surprised, pleasantly enjoy the encounter that I have. And I suppose that's what gets me over that hump of the fear, that, you know, that little voice that I hear, is because what I know from turning on the light all those times and looking under the bed is the boogeyman's not even there. So Loretta said, thanks, Fran. I shall take away from today is to get sales by actually asking for it and not just expecting it. Absolutely. And here's the funny thing, Loretta. I remember I was working with a healer and helping her with her sales. And I made her make one small change that moved her conversion rate from 20% to 89%. And what it was is just prescribing. And what we discovered in the buying, and this is something that I want to share with you, is actually when we don't ask, the buyer gets confused. You've asked them to dance, you've got the steps sorted out, you're supposed to be leading, and when you don't ask, they go, I thought we were dancing. Oh, Okay, maybe we're not. Maybe they're not interested in dancing with me. Maybe I'm not the right client. Maybe. So when you're clear and you know all the steps and you lead, and for those of you who've done dancing, ballroom dancing, I'm thinking, when you're dancing with a partner who leads strongly and well and, with you and dances with you, that's an amazing experience, right? And that's exactly the experience that we want for our clients. So absolutely, they want you to ask, and when you don't, they get confused. And a confused mind says no, even though you haven't asked. Now that's confusing. So I want you to think about the problem you solve. I want you to put together a roadmap. If you really have no idea where to start, go and talk to some existing clients and get them to help you construct the roadmap, because you know what? They've already traveled it. And they'll say to you, oh, yeah, and you know what? If I'd known that you did this, or if I'd known this, and that will help you flesh out all of those things that you don't know. Joanne, hi. Thank you for putting in a question. It says, I'm liking the visual roadmap you displayed as a tool to use in client meetings. Absolutely. The reason this little beauty is good for me is because I love talking, and sometimes I can get off track. The reason it's good for people who feel a bit anxious about sales is it's follow the bouncing ball. It gives you a consistency, it gives you a structure, it gives the client something to follow, and what you're doing is you're elevating and making transparent that process for them. For the client, they really like it because it takes the fear out of it. When are they going to ask me to buy from them? When do I do this? When do I do that? Well, if it's all mapped out, or the key highlights, you know what? And I've seen this happen in a sales meeting. When you whip out your little sales roadmap, what happens is the client physically relaxes because they go, oh, we're just at the listening phase. Okay, great. It's my turn to talk. Great. So it helps them relax and know what's coming next. So it takes a lot of the fear out of it for them. It looks professional as it's only a one-pager. It won't be as daunting as a whole presentation folder. Absolutely. And let me tell you why people put together a presentation folder. Joanne, what do you do? I'm waiting. But let me tell you why people, a VA, okay. Let me tell you why people put together a presentation folder. It's not for the client. It's actually for you. So what I would rather see you do is sit there and listen, have your simple roadmap, have an open piece of paper where you're writing lots of notes about the client, and then if you feel the need to have a presentation about what you do, make it an applied presentation, and that becomes your proposal. So I would rather you say, here's my roadmap, here's where we're at, this is what we're going to do. After the meeting today, what I'll do is once I've listened and understood what you want, I will put together an individual presentation for you that highlights the key areas that we've discussed today and where I might be able to help you. See how that's much more applied to the individual. It's not a laundry list of all the things that you do, and it's much more relevant. And so what we know is that people listen to one radio station, WIIFM, what's in it for me. So when you do an applied version of your presentation, that's more relevant to them. Therefore, they feel heard, they feel listened to, they feel understood, and you've applied what you know to them so they feel like you can actually add value rather than giving them a whole list of things that may or may not be relevant to them. Does that help you, Joanne? While I'm waiting for it. Sure it does. Go Fran. Go Joe. Woohoo. Anyone else? Anything else? See, questions. See, I did put the slide. What I need is a good VA to help me put the slides in properly. I'm so funny. So if you think that I can help you, I'm actually running a special this month because it's helping people by month. I'm doing a special 1-hour coaching call to help you unearth and build your client roadmap. And I'm doing that for only $97 for an hour with me. So what you get is you get some preparation material and an hour coaching call with me via Zoom that I will record and then supply to you for $97. So if that sounds like you, there's the little linky poo. And that's it from me. So if anybody else has any other questions, please put them up now. If you're one of those shy people who don't want to ask questions during a masterclass, I totally get it. Please feel free to email me or put something up in my Facebook page or on my Facebook group or whatever you feel comfortable, or call me. I always love a good phone call. And I'm available. I'm here to help you. And if there's something else, so I'm running these masterclasses all year. So if there's something else that you would love me to, I've got the next few mapped out, but if there's something else that you'd love me to cover, please let me know, because I work best when I make this relevant to you guys, which is why I love questions. And that's how I find fit. So thank you all for turning up during your lunch hour today, and I hope you are looking forward to a great weekend. And I might even see some of you at the Brilliant Biz Mums conference where I'm speaking on Saturday. And yeah, I know Rosie's going to be there as well, so that's fantastic. So thank you all for turning up. For those of you who weren't able to make it live, thank you as well for coming along or listening to the recording, and have an awesome, awesome day. All right. Thank you and goodbye.